Hi everyone. As you may have heard, Dr. Montgomery recently passed away. He was a vegan cardiologist. Most people are saying that he died from a heart attack or cardiac arrest, but at the time of me filming this video, there's no clear answer. He was 61 years old. He didn't even live to half of his lifespan. It is a very premature death. We are firstly going to look at the video of his from 5 years ago. We will see what he was promoting back then, how he was doing, as far as we can see. And then we will look at his latest video before he passed away. Rest in peace.
It was a process of my personal journey for my health, experiencing the death of my mother, seeing how my patients turned around when I started applying these natural approaches to their lives.
That's interesting because very often when you see your parents or somebody close to you pass away from heart failure, let's just say, I don't know what the cause was in this case, then you believe that you need to do everything to save the other people around you or yourself, of course, also. It's understandable. Unfortunately, the answer to these problems is not that clear nowadays because of a lot of misinformation out there. And he also called it natural, even though a plant-based or a vegan diet is as unnatural as it gets, if that's what he was referring to. I believe so.
And as, of course, I got older, and I was always a fit person, exercise and the like, but, life gets in the way and you stop exercising, you have more responsibilities and more stress.
He also exercised a lot in the past. That also adds to it. It is extreme stress.
And so you start to take on these same chronic illnesses that you see your patients have. However, in my mind state, I never wanted to succumb to being a patient, if you will. And so I guess it was more of a psychological barrier that I had in terms of not wanting to be a patient, whether my own patient or someone else's patient. So although I, in some sense, believed that these medications were helpful, in the other sense, I didn't think they were for me. And so it was a conflict that...
Does anybody else notice? It looks cartoonish how thin the legs are of the other doctor. I don't know who that is. Or is it just the angle, a sort of illusion? Because the shoes look huge and the pants, and then you have these very thin legs. I just noticed it right away. It looks so strange.
But yes, I did read books by the lay public, books by scientists who were outside of the traditional medical field. I read articles and to some extent some studies that were in books that weren't in the main medical journals or in the main cardiology journals. So I had to hit the unbeaten path to find this information.
You mentioned a term that I'd really like you to explain. You said a juice feast?
That's correct, yes. So when I started out in the plant-based area, I started out looking at, I took a raw vegan chef course. And so there was a local plant-based, she was really an animal rights advocate. And she had invited a raw vegan chef to the town to give a course. It was a crash course, weekend crash course.
You should never base your diet on animal rights or any philosophies. It should be based on your biology, what you're supposed to eat. Because if you base your diet on feelings and emotions, then what can you expect? The outcome can never be good because it's not focused on your health. If anything, in this case, it's focused on the health of the other animals. And that's, again, very anti-nature because nature and this reality works by you consuming the life of the other beings. That's how you become healthy. That's what all animals do. Even the animals that eat plants consume the life of the plants, and that's how they become strong and healthy. And of course, you, as a carnivorous being, cannot start eating based on feelings. There's no human in nature who eats plant-based, nothing even close to that. We cannot even eat the plants in nature anyway. If you're set out into the wild, you eat almost only animals.
And so we learned about preparing raw plant-based food. That was my introduction to vegan food, is raw vegan food. And so when we learned this, and I learned the benefits of not heating food too high, the benefits of allowing the enzymes to maintain their architecture, So I felt the benefit of eating these foods, and eating the foods made me feel better. So then I
That's all good, except that it should have been raw animal foods, not raw plant foods. It's right that you cook away the nutrients, the enzymes, and so on.
cold pressed juice of any type, and that's your meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you just drink juice 24/7. Now, my first juice feast was 33 days. So for 33 days, I ate nothing. I just drank raw juice of
Okay, he was overweight, then for sure, because a human at a normal weight cannot only drink juice for a month. That means that he was eating himself. That's what happens on a juice fast, which is a form of starvation, or a raw vegan diet, which is also a form of starvation. You eat your own fat, and people who are overweight especially feel like it's a very healthy diet because at last they lose the fat. They just don't realize that in reality they consume their own body fat. So they are actually living off of raw animal fat, which feels really good up until they lose all the weight. So this is not an actual real diet that you can eat in everyday life. This is really just a form of starvation, as I said.
different varieties, vegetable juice, fruit juice, mixture thereof. I say within about the first 5 to 10 days, I felt like a new person. Beyond 10 days, I had much more energy. I was waking up early, bright. My mental clarity was much greater. I had more energy, strength. It was just an amazing feeling. Every year I would do a juice feast.
Basically, he was experiencing the benefits of raw animal foods, ironically, sort of.
Since the first juice feast, I started eating plant-based. I said, well, I can eat a vegan diet. It's pretty easy. And I maintained it, never went back. However, I ate vegan junk food from time to time. So every year I would do a juice feast. I maybe do 20 days.
Yeah, when you eat vegan junk food, what he means is probably animal food imitations, because you do the fasting and then you need animal foods to actually build your body up again, which vegans are not allowed to do because of their religious mindset, the attachment to this lifestyle. And that's why you eat Beyond Meat, fake burgers, fake cheese, and so on. It's very typical what he experienced. And all of this garbage is loaded with seed oils, which is one of the main causes of heart attacks, seeing as the plaque builds up in the arteries. Besides that, the vegans also take a lot of supplements, which also build up in the arteries, especially calcium and iron supplements. We can only speculate as to why he died in the end, seeing as the cause of death hasn't even really been released yet. It's a lot of speculations.
Days, 15 days, 13 days, etc. After the juice feast, I feel much better. I realized that, okay, all vegan foods weren't created equal. So I started to think and said, well, look, if I eat raw vegan food, that's one thing. If I eat something cooked, that's one thing. Something sauteed in oil, something fried, that's another thing. We built a restaurant inside the clinic. And so now we have a nutrition center and a restaurant. I have wellness coordinators, nutritionists. We have, chefs we brought in from around the world to help prepare natural plant-based foods according to our food classification.
Again, he uses the word natural. This means that he was manipulated by somebody to actually believe that it's natural to eat this way. Because, as I said, these plants are not even found in nature. These are cultivated plants, the vegetables, even the fruits for the most part, that we eat today. The potatoes, the broccoli, none of this exists in nature. You cannot find it anywhere. Even the carrots are completely man-made. They don't even look like wild natural carrots at all, which are bitter and inedible because of how toxic they are. You can still taste the keratotoxin a little bit in the modern cultivated carrots, but not much. This is why people get allergic reactions to carrots and all of these fake foods, because we're just not naturally supposed to eat them. Sometimes even a little bit of those toxins cause an allergic reaction. Point being, somehow he ended up believing that this is what we are naturally supposed to eat. And that's usually when the downfall happens, when you really religiously start believing in a diet and actually believe that it is natural for you as a human being. Because then, no matter how you feel and no matter what the outcomes are, you will always find a reason. You have gut pain, bloating from all the fiber. That's natural, it's good for you. You will always find an excuse as to why you're not feeling optimal. Now, keep in mind the way he looked like 5 years ago, because now we will look at the way he looked like just before he passed away.
I want to emphasize that we're all different genetically.
This is actually funny because he's showing the popular DNA spiral, but this is just an art piece. Most people don't know this. It has never actually been observed. Realistically, this is just pure fantasy because an artist thought of it. It's pure imagination. Yeah.
And so we can all have the same underlying biological and biochemical abnormalities, but we'll all manifest different things. So somebody who is predisposed to having diabetes, if they have increased inflammation, increased oxidative stress, they'll get diabetes. So there's a propensity.
The reason I told you to keep in mind the way he looked like is because what I noticed right away is that his speech is much slower. 5 years later, his skin tone is much paler, possibly anemic looking. Sure, there's always the lighting. It is lighter also here. Still, I don't think that that's what's causing it in this case. And he looks gaunt, sort of. Really what you would just sum up as sickly looking. Tell me what you think about it, but I right away noticed a difference. Something was not right 5 years later.
For cancer, but the underlying condition is oxidative stress, inflammation, abnormal microbiome, which you brought up.
It's also his eyes. And I feel like there's a slight yellow tint to the eyes. Could be the lighting, but I looked at more clips before I made this video. I did some research and I felt like I noticed it in a lot of the latest clips. He had just lost a lot of weight also. He did look like a very different human being. Some may say, oh, but it's been 5 years. 5 years is not really a lot of time. Look at clips from me from 10 years ago. Yes, he was older, but still. Should you change that drastically from your mid-50s to 61? Not really. And if the diet is healthy, shouldn't he look better or just as good or slightly older only? The difference is too big.
By an abnormal environmental insult. Oftentimes the bad food we eat.
He's showing meat as bad food. To be fair, it's cooked meat with carcinogens, not good for you. And it seems like somebody is pouring some kind of seed oils over the meat, also bad for you. Yeah, but the meat itself is not bad for you.
Well, the life we get food.
I should also mention that the first recorded heart attack was 100 years ago, approximately. Why didn't human beings get heart attacks before that?
Prior to 1921, there was no recorded heart attack in a hospital. I mean, isn't that amazing? Yet today there's like 700,000 a year. So what happened from 1921 to current day? What happened was massive change in how we ate and our food supply.
They used to eat mostly meat, a lot of raw meat also. They used to drink raw milk, at least in Europe and other parts of the earth. There was no pasteurization before that. A little bit, a few decades before that they kind of started, but really it only got popular around 80 years ago. It's very recent. Why no heart attacks? You would have to think about this because people also didn't used to exercise. There didn't used to be any seed oils around. And when they analyzed the plaque in the arteries, it's seed oils, a very large part of the plaque. This should make you think. This drastic change in diet and lifestyle is clearly what caused a lot of the issues that we have today health-wise.
Food we eat, but the bad air we breathe, the water, the other toxins that may get into our system.
Yeah, but this is again exactly the thing that I meant. When you start religiously believing that eating raw plants or plants in general is natural for you as a being, then you start blaming the water, the air. Is the water good? No. You shouldn't drink the tap water and really most bottled water anywhere on earth. Maybe from a natural spring, but with the pollution nowadays, it's better than tap water. And the air, yeah, the air is polluted, especially in cities. Of course, living in a more natural environment is going to be better. Is that gonna make you look pale, gaunt, and cause a heart attack? No. Could it add a little bit to it? Maybe, but it's not gonna cause it.
Other mechanisms. So we look at these things and we try to cut it off at the source.
And it's again just the meat, and this is just the way he passed away in the end, with a very strong belief that meat is bad for you, not realizing that most meat nowadays, if you buy it in a restaurant, a fast food place, is cooked in seed oils. And by the way, his whole channel was about heart disease, heart attacks, strokes also, the health of your arteries. Almost every video on the channel, you could really call him a specialist as far as his dedication to the subject goes.
Patient, his name is KD. He's a 50-year-old male. He was also diagnosed with heart failure. He was diagnosed with this in 2018. Prior to this, had long-standing hypertension, some high cholesterol. He had a stroke in 2024, but most recently, just in January, he had 2 strokes. So they found an acute embolic stroke affecting both the left and right side of the brain. They found a blood clot in the leg, blood clots in the lung. His heart failure was very...
Also, I should mention, but this is also not confirmed, a lot of people are saying, I think more so assuming, that he took the thing. And, well, that's it. That's all that I will say to that. Still, would it make you look like this? Would it be a problem now, 5 years later? Pretty much. If you want to believe that, I think that the diet in this case played a way bigger role, at least. It's just been too long. We don't know what he did, of course, overall. We're just all speculating here, but the bottom line is dying at 61 is not normal, whatever the cause was.
bad. His ejection fraction was like 15%. And he informed me in the past they had ruled out blocked arteries as the cause. Nope. He didn't feel anybody told him what the cause was of the heart failure, is how he put it. And he was here because he knew he needed to make a change in his diet and to take more priority on his own health himself. He wanted to try to strengthen his heart. People had talked to him about a life vest, temporary and that kind of thing.
Wow. So again, another patient with heart failure and blood clots, but slightly different, type presentation. However, as we talked about with other patients, clotting can be a manifestation of underlying inflammation, increased oxidative stress. One person may manifest early as high blood pressure, diabetes. Someone else may manifest early as blood clot, high blood pressure, and early with heart failure. And I think that's the case with him. And interesting.
Oxidative stress is caused by a lot that includes exercise, which humans never used to do, especially the kind of extreme exercise that we see today, such as marathon running. The people who do it are very prone to heart attacks, even in their 40s and 50s already. But also plant-based diets, especially when the plants that you're eating are pesticide-ridden, not even mentioning the so-called natural anti-nutrients and toxins which are in all of the plants. You're eating omega-6 based plant oils, on top of that fake vegan food with other seed oils. A lot of problems from this kind of a lifestyle.
He has clots in the lower extremities, clots in the lungs. You may have had clots go from the right side of the heart to the left side. And you mentioned the phrase embolic stroke. Different types of strokes, 2 kinds. One is due to bleeding, one is due to clots. If you look at the ones due to clots, there are 2 kinds of subsets. One, the clot travels from one location to the brain. That's an
I like that he's showing these animations because to me, from an actual natural perspective, I right away think, what is going to travel through my arteries the best way, the way it should be naturally, the way it is for all animals that live in the wild. And it would never in my mind be seed oils, for example, margarine, because it gets hard in the body. What I right away think, of course, is what we are naturally supposed to eat. If I consume blood, liver, raw animal foods, I know just purely naturally, because of how juicy, raw, and delicious and healthy they are, that this is never going to end up as plaque in my arteries. I know it. You know it.
The Eskimos ate 90% of their diet in the form of saturated fat. This is documented scientific fact, and they had no heart disease. The more your body's burning fat for fuel, the more you're getting saturated fat, the healthier you are. The more you're burning sugar and the less cholesterol and the less saturated fat, the lower your energy is going to be and the less hormones you're going to have. And this is biology 101.
This is what you should always think about. If you ever think, oh, just a little bit of fries made in seed oils, just once a week, and then some mac and cheese and whatever. All right, that wouldn't be so bad, but the way it's made today is bad. But over the decades, even if you do it once a week, that could add up and you could experience blocked arteries. It's never going to be worth it. Let's say you can pull it off until you're 90. Still, do you not want to see your grandchildren, even great-grandchildren at that point, grow up? Of course you do. It's not worth it to eat that garbage. Eat natural food, and you're never going to have to deal with this.
So like the body's throwing a clot to the brain, and then the other clot is a clot that forms locally in the blood vessel. We call it a thrombotic stroke, or thrombosis formed locally. So a blood vessel gets damaged there in the brain or ruptures in a clot.
Yeah, and you always have to think about it. What could possibly cause it? What's naturally supposed to be in your body? If you just eat natural food in the wild, do you get it? No, it's foreign objects, and your body actually only forms these clots to deal with the problem. It's a natural response mechanism of your body. Your body is not trying to kill you, obviously. Your body only does everything that it possibly can to heal you, but that's the only way that your body knows how to deal with the problem.
Clot forms there, and then you can have bleeding, which is a hemorrhagic stroke. Sometimes you have bleeding after you have a clot. Sometimes the blood vessel gets damaged after the clot forms. So that's a post-embolic or post-thrombotic hemorrhagic. So
And he had some of that.
you have some of that.
Anyway,
Yeah. The underlying mechanisms are key in that you have a
I feel kind of sorry for the girl because she's relatively young still. She clearly looked up to the doctor, believed that he found the cure to strokes and heart attacks. And then he experiences, as far as the information goes, the same thing. We will see what really the cause of death was in the end, but that's what everybody is saying. Whatever the case, it was a premature death.
clot formed remotely that goes to the brain, or clot formed locally, or bleeding formed locally. But guess what? All three are likely due to underlying inflammatory processes which cause increased clot.
Yes, in the gut, which is where you digest your food. Same thing as I said about the arteries. You look at what's not supposed to be inside of your body, you can even see it from the outside when you really open up your mind. And then you know it because it causes bloating, gas, pain, eventually IBS and all kinds of gut issues, Crohn's disease. It's all because you're not eating what you're naturally supposed to eat. You start eating what you're supposed to eat, raw animal foods, even eggs, maybe even dairy, which I don't recommend, but it's better than everything that he was eating most likely. And you're not going to ever feel any gut discomfort from dairy. You could actually, because it's not what we are naturally supposed to eat, but not from raw meat, eggs.
Or increase damage to a blood vessel. So inflammation causes damage to a blood vessel, causes clotting. Inflammation causes clotting throughout the body to cause clots to move around, to embolize. And so we're still dealing with the underlying process of increased inflammation, increased oxidative stress, and likely an abnormal microbiome that sort of feeds into all these things. So there'll be a similar approach with this patient in the sense that we're going to address the inflammation.
But what is that supposed to be now? He says we are gonna address the inflammation, and then he shows a man-made cake or bread or whatever made out of seeds. You see how that made no sense? Really strange. He talks about nature and everything, and in the end he does that.
And we use that with a special targeted diet. Now, the nutritional interventions from one patient to the other may vary depending on their clinical condition. Some people may go more.
You see? None of this makes any sense. He was actually right overall. He actually got it figured out. The inflammation, the oxidative stress, eating naturally, except that he didn't do that. All of the problems would have went away if he actually ate natural food. Observe what all humans eat in nature. It always goes back to raw meat. It's just what we all eat in nature.
On an aggressive raw diet, some people on less. Some people may have more hydration. We may do targeted.
Even the raw part he got right. He actually got everything right, except that there was nobody to tell him that it's not raw plants, which don't even exist in nature. Actually, he was really spot on. And at the same time, he did almost the opposite of what we should be doing. He got everything figured out, but ate the opposite diet, basically. Raw plants instead of raw meat. Raw animals. You hunt an animal and you eat the animal. That's what all humans do in nature. Even on a cooked meat diet, you wouldn't have these problems. If you cook your meat in butter and tallow, as long as you don't overcook it.
Supplements slightly different, but even though the approach we take is...
Imagine if 5 years ago he would have hopped on a raw animal-based diet. He would have looked like a completely different human being. And we see that again and again. All the transformations on raw meat. They are all amazing. There's not one human who looks in any way worse. If anything, people even reverse their age. I've never seen one. Everybody who starts eating raw animal foods looks healthier, even more attractive, younger. It's just amazing.
Slightly different in nuance. The overall approach is very similar. And then we'll follow different tests with him, as opposed to another patient that has other conditions. I think he's going to respond quite well to the regimen that we start him on. I look forward to seeing his follow-up. So I hope this was helpful. I always want to...
I think that the sauces also have seed oils inside of them. Usually they do.
Emphasize that we like to think of the underlying condition, which is not necessarily the diagnostic label. So if your doctor gives you a diagnostic label, ask her or him, what did they think the underlying cause or underlying mechanism is, and think of how that's going to be addressed. So if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section. And until next time, take care.
He was for sure a well-meaning doctor. I don't doubt that. It's just that he was misinformed, unfortunately. As I said, he actually had it figured out. Raw food, all humans in nature only eat raw food. There is no cooking, there's no fire, there's no pot with hot water where you put something inside, your rice and legumes. That's all a modern way of processing food. In nature, you eat the food the way it is, and these plants that he was eating are simply not even found in nature. That's why you have never seen them on your forest walk, because they were cultivated, and a lot of them today are even made in laboratories. A lot of them are genetically modified. It's fake food, which is what he was eating for the most part. As you could see, he looked weaker, sort of gaunt, pale. There was no life energy left, not a lot. And he also understood, as far as I could see from the other videos, that you should avoid stress. Even though he used to exercise a lot, not anymore at the end, I suppose, but there's no real information about it. He for sure thought that exercise is a good thing, which is extreme stress, and as I said, causes a lot of oxidative stress. And as I said, the plants also do. He also understood that the inflammation in the gut is linked to your overall health, obviously, because if you're not eating what you're naturally supposed to eat, then there's going to be a lot of inflammation. Your body is telling you that you're not eating what you're supposed to be eating. That's why you get gas, bloating, and gut pain. And the inflammation, which is just a response of your body to what you're eating, could spread throughout the body. It's not as if the inflammation itself is bad. It's that what you're eating spreads throughout the body, such as the toxins, for example, and those can then eventually, after years, decades of eating this way, cause these clumps, plaque in the arteries, and this is possibly what he experienced in the end. There is, as I said, no confirmed information about that, but this is what a lot of people experience today, as we know, and that is for sure clear. He really had it all figured out overall. It's just that nowadays there's a lot of fear-mongering when it comes to what humans eat in nature because of the way it's portrayed. In movies, people are portrayed as primitive, as if that's a bad thing. People believe that they had very short lifespans, even though people in nature live way longer than us. Natural eating is very demonized, and when you figure out that you're supposed to eat raw food, a lot of these raw vegans, they end up believing, well, must be raw plants then. Raw seems natural. Why would we cook the food? We can just eat it the way we are supposed to eat it, just like all animals. Because if an animal is supposed to eat something naturally, then they just eat it in the raw state. He got that figured out. A lot of people do today, but the conclusion is never, now let's start eating raw liver, brain, eggs, steak tartare, sashimi. Let's start going more to the sashimi restaurant. You love it so much. Oysters, scallops. The conclusion is usually, let's start eating more broccoli, raw fruits, which are okay, and raw seeds and everything that humans would have never eaten. All the best to the people who worked with him. I hope that you will realize what actually happened here. Thanks for watching.